Good morning, my name is Hazel Clark and I am a therapist and Pilates instructor at Mountain Massage Company in the Lake District, and I am going to go through a sort of fairly basic to intermediate Pilates reformer flow this morning. So join me if you want to. I'm just going to pop my headrest up to begin with. I've got one heavy spring on. I'm going to come and have a little lay on my back. Both my feet up on the foot bar. And I'm just going to start with a few nice little pelvic tucks and tilts. So, I'm just flattening my lower back into the reformer and then just gently scooping those lumbar kind of vertebrae away. So that's your lower back. So there should be just a little hint of a gap naturally under that area of your back, and we're just gently scooping it away and then gently pressing it in. So nothing else really needs to move at this point. I'm just tucking and tilting. Some people like to imagine they've got like a little marble or a ball resting on their belly, and they kind of roll that marble off between their legs, or they roll that marble up towards their ribs. Okay. And then I'm going to take my straps and I'm going to start to pop my straps on my legs this morning. So I've just got one spring on. I'm going to push the reformer away. I'm going to pop that foot into that strap there. Brace yourself, hold yourself there. Let's put the other strap on. I'm just going to start with some nice easy stretching this morning. So I'm pushing those feet out at about 45-degree angle. I'm just going to start with a little bit of lift and lower. So just with these straight legs, this is a fairly easy spring to be starting this on, just because it's the beginning of the class and we're just kind of mobilising things a little bit. Okay, so this shouldn't feel heavy on the legs at all. We've just got a little bit of support for those abdominals, so we're waking the abdominals up here. And we're just getting a bit of a hamstring stretch down the back of the legs as the feet come up towards the ceiling. So we're just trying to keep those legs straight. Mine might not look super straight. I tend to have quite tight hamstrings, so you might see a little bit of a bend in the knee with me. So it's whatever feels comfortable for you. And we're just lowering and lifting. And the next time they come up, I'm going to keep them kind of up towards the ceiling. See if we can keep that neutral spine now, so that sort of halfway point between our tuck and our tilt. And I'm going to just allow the feet to come out to the side for our adductor stretch and back in. So I'm allowing those feet to come out to the side and back in. So I'm feeling super, super tight around the pelvis and around the hips. So I'm just doing a few stretches just to have a bit of an effect on those muscles. And this should feel quite nice. You shouldn't have to force this. And the idea with this one is we keep the reformer lovely and still. So it shouldn't be kind of too hard to control with this nice kind of fairly moderate spring here. We're just stretching in a dynamic way, just controlling that movement. Nothing's working too hard at this point. Okay, I'm going to combine those two movements and I'm going to start to just do a few leg circles. So again, this should feel like a fairly nice, easy kind of movement at this point. We're going to take the heels down towards the floor at about 45 degrees. We're going to open them up, semi-circle them round, bring the feet back together and then press those heels down towards the floor. So all this time we're keeping this nice neutral spine. We've got the shoulders maybe just gently nestled up against the shoulder pads, but they should feel fairly relaxed. The head's in a neutral position. We've got that little tuck of the chin, lengthening through the back of the neck. And I want you to just imagine what's going on in the hip joint, so this lovely ball and socket joint. We just get a nice rotation, a nice kind of circling around. And we're going to change directions on this next one. So, on this next one, we're going to open the legs out to the side. We're going to sweep the heels down and bring them together. And then draw those feet back up towards the ceiling. So I'm definitely starting to feel a little bit smoother in the hips. I do quite a lot of running and I get quite stiff and tight, and then I'm like standing all day at work. So my legs get pretty stiff. So this is just a nice sort of easy flow. Good. I'm going to do 2 more. Okay, last one. Also I can't count, so just bear that in mind. Okay, I'm going to bend both knees for a moment and just bring them into this tabletop position. So I'm going to work with one leg now. So this is going to make our abdominal muscles work a little bit harder. So I might actually just remove this strap from this other leg. So I'm keeping my right foot in my strap, in my long loop, and I'm just going to pop that back on the peg for the moment. So both legs in tabletop for the moment. I'm going to start to weight these abdominals up. I'm going to push the leg that's in the strap away from me and draw it back in. So I'm just pushing out with a single leg. So I'm going for a single leg. Bend and stretch, or one leg stretch from the mat work. Pushing that foot out towards, well for me that's out towards the windows, as if I wanted to put a little footprint on the window in front of me. And the other leg is, I'm trying to keep that nice and still. So I've just got my fingertips on the front of my pelvis here, so that's sort of the bony sticky outy bits at the front of your pelvis. And I'm just checking that I'm not tipping from side to side as I press out. So again, that can be a good indicator that you're keeping a nice kind of neutral spine and a nice sort of stable pelvis. I'm going to go for 2 more. And on this next one, I'm going to hold the leg out there and I'm going to go for my one leg. Lift and lower. So this is kind of up in the ante a little bit. Nice and easy start to the class, and now things will feel like they're getting a little bit tougher. So with this one spring, the double leg stuff should have felt quite easy, but now this single leg stuff is going to feel a bit more challenging. So of course you can absolutely change springs and you can go for a lighter spring. Or you can do these with a double leg. So you can have both feet in your straps and do this same movement with 2 legs. And that will make it feel a little bit more stable. I am just pressing my heel down towards the floor and then drawing that kneecap up towards me. So I'm sending that thigh away and then drawing it back up towards me. I'm going to go for 2 more. Last one. I'm going to draw it back in. And this time I'm going to go for my leg circles. So I'm going to send that leg out to the side. Now I'm going to keep my circles quite small with this. So I'm definitely keeping them smaller than I did with the 2 legs. A little bit more controlled. So mine are probably about half the size. Well, maybe about, yeah, let's say half to 3/4 of the size that they were before. I'm just going to go for 1 more. I'm going to change direction, and I think I'm going to do 3 on this side, so I'm finding this harder to control. My pelvis is starting to tip a little bit. I'm going to do 1 more. Ooh. I'm going to bring that leg in. I'm just going to pop this foot down on the foot bar. I'm going to take that foot out and pop that strap on the peg. And I'm going to take this loop and I'm going to pop this foot in this loop. I'm going to press into that strap a little bit to hold myself there. Just adjusting myself so it's just slid up a little bit. I'm going to bring the other leg into tabletop, and I'm going to go for a bend and stretch on this side. So what's happening in this exercise? Well, obviously we're working the muscles around the hip and the pelvis. We're also having to work the abdominal muscles. So in order to keep our legs where they are, and in order to hold this one nice and still, we've got some lower abdominal activity going on this right hand side. Could be. So I'm definitely feeling a bit wobblier in this hip. It's slightly harder to control this one, which means the little stabilising muscles around the hip on this side are having to work a little bit harder. You're also getting some oblique abdominal work as well. So in order to sort of stop you being shifted to one side, the muscles around the side of the waist are having to work. Okay, I'm going to go for my lift and lower. So I am definitely finding this side slightly tougher to control, which means I've got a little bit of an imbalance, which is not new news to me. I know my left side works a little bit differently than my right side, but that's why Pilates is amazing. Keeps you nice and balanced. I'm just going to do one more on this side. And I'm going to go for some very small circles on this side, because I know, so already as I take the leg out to the side, I'm finding that much harder to control. So probably really, I should maybe swap springs for this leg, but I'm going to battle on through. It's not too much of a battle. There shouldn't be too much battle in Pilates. But I'm definitely finding that quite a lot tougher than I did on the right hand side, and I'm getting more roll in my pelvis. I'm having to concentrate quite hard to keep that stable. I obviously need more of these in my life. I'm just going to do one more, because this side's fatiguing a little bit quicker than the right side did. Okay, so I'm going to pop this foot down on the foot bar. I'm going to take myself out of that loop. I'm going to bring both hands now into my straps. I'm going to stay on that spring, that same spring setting. I'm going to bring both legs into my tabletop. So just find that neutral spine again. If you need to do a couple of taps and tilt your pelvis, we want that little hint of a gap. So for some people, when they come up into this tabletop position, they have to jam their back into the floor of the reformer in order to achieve that. What we want to work towards with the style of Pilates that I'm trained in with APPI, we want to try to be able to keep a neutral spine. So that little hint, natural hint of a little gap onto your lower back, and the tummy muscles gently contracted in rather than sort of bulging out, popping out when we bring the leg up. We want to be able to control that when we move in and out of that tabletop position. So that's just something to have a little think about. Okay, so I'm going to go for my plow. I'm going to sweep the arms down to the side and coming back up. I'm going to sweep the arms down to the side and raise them back up. So when we raise them back up, they should just be kind of coming up above the shoulders. And the shoulders should still have that feeling of space between those and them and the ears, basically. So we want to keep the shoulders down, even though the arm's moving. I'm going to add in a one leg reach just to work my abdominals a little bit harder. So as I sweep the arms away this time, I'm going to reach one leg away. So the arms, the hands, the backs of the palms of the hands are coming down towards your hips, towards the reformer. So my palms are face down and the backs of the hands are up towards the ceiling. Sweeping them down towards the hips whilst I reach and leg away. And I'm just alternating from side to side. So you want that feeling of drawing the abdominal muscles in towards the reformer and towards the spine. Some of my Pilates clients quite like the analogy of like, imagine there's like a heavy, like there's something heavy on your tummy. So like a sort of sandbag or one of our little Pilates balls kind of on the tummy. It's just that feeling of it being drawn down rather than bulging away. And just bring your awareness back back to your lower back, and let's just see if we can work out if we're bowing or swaying away from the reformer, or whether we're keeping that little neutral spine. Pilates is all about being able to kind of zone into your body and tune into your body. I'm going to do one more on each side. And then I'm going to go for some open and close. So I'm going to take the arms out to the side and back in. So this time the reformer doesn't move. My palms are staying facing towards my feet or the window of my studio, and the reformer is staying nice and still. I'm going to add in a hip twist. So as I take the arms out the side, I'm going to take one leg away and back in. As I take the arms out to the side, I'm going to take a leg away and back in. So the important thing with this, when we take a leg away, I want you to see if you can glance down, keep your foot perfectly hidden behind your thigh. So rather than letting the foot poke out or the hip twist, I want you to see if you can keep your lower leg and your foot perfectly hidden. So you should just be able to see your knee and your thigh. The sun's come out here in Cumbria, so I'm actually keeping my eyes closed because it's quite bright. It's beautiful. I'm going to do one more on each side. Try to limit any rock and roll that's going out to the side. And I'm just going to do one more in this position. So I'm going to go for my coordination. So I'm going to sweep the arms down and the legs away. I'm going to draw myself up and have a little look at my thighs. And then I'm going to bring my legs back in. I'm going to bring my arms back, and I'm going to bring my head down. So this is a fairly tough move, and you can do it with just one leg, or you can do it with just the arms and the head and come into a little bit of an abdo prep and come back down. I'm going to choose to do all three. So draw the legs back in, arms back in, and head down. When we come up into this move, I want you to think about curling the rib cage down towards your pelvis. So imagine there's little imaginary springs that are sort of between your rib cage and your pelvis, or abdominal muscles as some people like to call them. I want you to think about them contracting and shortening. Now, if you get a bit of overworking in your neck muscles and you're just getting your head lifting up rather than that curling, if you start to feel it in the neck before you feel it in your abdominal muscles, maybe just leave the head down on the floor for this one, or do a few reps and then give your neck a rest. It's very easy to overwork the neck flexors, the muscles at the front of the neck, in comparison to the abdominals. I'm just going to do two more. Breathing out. One more. Lovely. I'm going to pop that foot down. I'm going to put my little handles back on the pecs. We're going to come over and sit up. And I'm going to have a little swing change. Actually, I'm not having a swing change. I'm going to come straight into mermaid. So, with mermaid, there's a few different sitting positions. So the traditional one, we have one lower leg, shin, tibia, whatever you want to call it, up against your shoulder pads. So the leg that's nearest to the shoulder pads, that leg will go towards that leg will kind of be up against the shoulder pads. And the other leg is kind of out in front of you, so the foot's just resting on the thigh. Now for me, I definitely struggle to be in a neutral spine in this position, okay? And I am very stiff through this hip at the moment. So you can see I kind of can't sit upright, I'm nice and straight there. So I'm actually going to come into an alternate position. You can kind of use blocks and things to adjust the pelvis, but for today and for now, I think I'm just going to come into an alternate position, and in fact I don't quite Haven't quite worked out what that is today. Do I want to do this? Maybe I do want to do this. Maybe I do want to do this one. This is actually feeling like the best version. So forget what I just said. I'm going to come into this position. And I'm really going to try and pin that hip down a little bit. Okay, so as I push that reformer away, I'm going to sweep the arm up and over and come into a little bit of a side bend. Oh, I'm super stiff. Okay, and again, I'm staying on the same spring. Of course, you can change springs. You can work the arm a bit more by having a heavier spring, or a bit less by having a light spring. So shoulders back and down, reach that arm up and over. Imagine you're kind of curling up and over something, so like a little fence or something. We're kind of going up and over. Oh, that's lovely. But I'm very stiff. So try to keep that body nice and tall. Think about that length in the spine. I'm going to add a bit of rotation in. So I'm going to rotate and see if I can just touch that foot bar and then curl back round. Try to keep that hip pin down. I know I'm not making a very good example of that. Oh, I'm so stiff. Oh, it's wonderful. I'm going to turn over to the other side. So, as we turn, let's just add in a little sneaky exercise in the middle here. So, come have a little kneel on your reformer with your feet up against the foot pads, and let's just go for a little bit of sort of, well, it's a bit of a pike really, a bit of a mountain climber, but let's just start with it on the knees. So we're going to send the knees out and draw them back in. This is part of our knee stretch series, and I'm going to try and keep a flat back here. There will be a little bit of movement. So my shoulders are just behind my hands. And this time I'm going to come in for a little bit of a hover, so you can carry on with just the knees. I'm going to try to hover my knees and then send the knees away. So I'm now just going to draw the knees in and push the feet away. My upper body's staying where it is. I'm going to go for 2 more. Last one. And I'm going to hover those knees back down. Okay, come over onto the other side. Let's see how the body's feeling. My reformer's creaking. I feel like that's in sympathy with my creaky body today. So again, you can see that this hip, I can't quite get this hip down. So in an ideal world, what I would actually do is pop a block, but it isn't under the one you think, so it isn't under this hovering hip. You'd actually pop it under the other side. So what that would do would raise your pelvis up and make it level, okay? I'm not going to do that because I haven't got one to hand, so I will do next time. Try to encourage this hip down towards the reformer. I'm going to reach up with this hand. I'm going to push the foot bar away and come in for that little side bend. And all the time you're trying to send this hip down towards the reformer and reach away. Reaching away from armpit to hip. I'm going to do one more. And in fact, I'm going to start to add in a little bit of rotation. I'm finding that tricky on this side. So I've been doing a lot more computer work, a lot more study. I've been back at university this year, so I'm doing a lot more driving and I'm doing a lot more sitting at a computer, and my body is not a fan of that. Okay, I'm going to come back over here for just a little bit more abdominal work. So I've actually ended up staying on the same spring for this whole workout. I didn't really intentionally mean to do that, but fine, we'll go with it. So because I'm super tight and super stiff, I'm actually going to come into an elephant stretch. So this is done standing on the reformer. So if you've never stood on the reformer before, maybe just pop another spring on. Just a light one, just so you feel a bit more stable. And we're going to come and have a little stand. So what you could do, if you're kind of new to standing on the reformer, we could literally just do some squats. Squat to kind of a good morning, really, isn't it? Position. So this is kind of a nice alternative. You've got a secure grip on the bar. But if you're happy standing on the reformer, we're going to come and have a little stand back. So I'm going to put the heels against the shoulder pads. My shoulders are going to come back and down. Now, as I mentioned before, my hamstring muscles and my back is super tight and super stiff. So maybe listen to the position rather than just follow my position. I want you to think about drawing up lovely and tall in the legs, and I want you to think about shifting the weight back. So what you want is for this back to be kind of nice and flat, and ideally coming into this lovely flat back position here. This isn't necessarily what I'm achieving today. But I'm trying to imagine that. So my shoulders are drawing back and down, my chin is tucked, I'm thinking about my spine being nice and long. I'm already getting a very strong stretch through my hamstrings. And I'm just going to send the heels out away behind me and then draw them back in. So my body doesn't move. I'm extending my hips and then I'm flexing my hips. So what that means is I'm pushing the back of my heels away towards the back of the reformer, and then I'm drawing, sucking my feet back towards the foot bar. Thinking about that spine being nice and long and tucking my chin. This is the last little bit from me today. Nice and kind of stretch, a little bit of abdominal work. Fairly easy little workout this morning. And then I'm going to just have a little bend down. And I'm going to finish up there. So thank you for joining me. My name's Hazel and I'm a therapist and a Pilates instructor at Mountain Massage Company in the Lake District in the UK.